Would you like to start?
Yeah, well, let's get going. So thank you for having me. And the wonderful world, or not so wonderful world, of recycling. Educate works predominantly in schools and preschools throughout Canterbury. Currently we've got 145 schools and preschools on the books. We are an independent company, so we get lots of info from the recycling companies and the waste companies to hopefully share to help people make the right decisions. And we like being able to help and support. It's not a perfect world, and there's certainly plenty of things that need to change, but I firmly believe we can all do a little bit of something, which might add up to quite a lot. So recycling in Ashburton over lockdown wasn't being recycled. The reason it wasn't being recycled was because we had it going to landfill, basically due to overseas markets collapsing. And we'll see if we can pull up a photo of the landfill for you guys. The landfill is based at Kate Valley, which is about 2 hours north of Ashburton, at Waipara. And here we go, we should have a photo of the landfill popping up behind me. It's pretty big, it's pretty enormous, and there's a lot of stuff goes in there that shouldn't go in there still. The reason the recycling ended up in the landfill was not just the collapse of the overseas markets, which hopefully is pushing the drive to do more onshore recycling, but also the contamination that was coming through in the recycle bins. There are people at the other end of the line who don't really need to be dealing with face masks, snotty tissues and gloves at this time particularly. So it had become very much a health and safety hazard, and that's when the call was made. We are still expecting contamination to be coming through in bins for quite some time, particularly in Ashburton, where unfortunately you were encouraged to use them as rubbish bins. I can but only imagine how some of those bins might be smelling if they've got food scraps in them. So we'll wait and see. I know that the truckloads will be checked before they go up to Eco Central so that there isn't a high proportion of contamination being sent up. Because for recycling to work, it has to be clean, it has to be correct. We do waste audits in Ashburton. A waste audit in Ashburton is extremely fun because we get to walk up to your bin at curbside. We're not allowed on your property, but at curbside we can have a look and the contents are tipped into a clear plastic bag. That clear plastic bag, then we can see exactly what you've been putting in your bin. And the bag is either put in the truck and sent away for recycling, and we give you a pat on the back and say wonderful, or if it is horribly contaminated with nappies, medical waste, food scraps, clothing, etc., that bag will be left on your driveway, which is always a good way to meet all the neighbours in your district who come out to see what's going on. The one bin we refused to tip was half full of rocks. It's not recycling. So there's plenty of info on the council website. There are some more changes that are going to be coming through. Beside me, I have a little basket. So we'll just change our photo, I think, to a photo that we took just recently at the recycling centre. This is Eco Central. It's in Parkhouse Road in Wigram, location in Christchurch, and it takes the recycling from the Waimakariri, Huranui, Selwyn, Christchurch and Ashburton, and Selwyn as well, so it's the 5 contributing councils. They process 25 tonnes of recycling an hour. They do have open days. They just recently had one in February. I tend to share that on my website and I get the council to share it as well if we can, or anyway, it's well worth a look. So that pile behind me in the photo is 5 days worth of recycling. It's a pretty fuzzy photo, sorry, it's not your eyesight guys, it's just a bad photo. It goes back for 35 metres and I can't even get all of it in the photo. It does make me look quite tiny, which is probably the best diet I've ever been on. It goes through a MRF, or a materials recovery facility. The first thing that happens on the conveyor belt is people get to pull off the contaminants. It's not a place you want to go if you've just had breakfast, because you find all sorts of odds and ends in recycling. I don't understand food, and I don't understand animal parts. Cow's stomach was the loveliest little treat we had out of Ashburton in a recycle bin. They pull off the contaminants as much as they can, and then it is mechanically sorted. The plastics are scanned by computers. We hope to have a new clip coming through. They're in the process of putting one together. I believe the MRF has been totally cleaned before it restarted again yesterday for recycling. Be interesting to see. So from there, the products are baled. Those are bales just beside me there. And they are then shipped off to wherever there is a market to recycle them. So there's talk at national level about paper plants and fibre, cardboard and paper, improvement of that recycling in New Zealand. There are some in the North Island, but they tend to have slightly limited capacity. Plastic grade 1, so let's have a wee look in my basket of bits and pieces here. So that's that clear plastic like that, and it has that recycling triangle on the bottom. That's, sorry, bad photo. And in that recycling triangle, the chasing arrows triangle is the number 1. That's about the grade of plastic. That can actually be recycled in Wellington at Flight Plastics. So they have a Google clip, go and have a look. There is quite a bit of this turning back up in those new meat trays that are coming through from the supermarket. So yeah, get your glasses on or find some younger eyes, check that number. 1 is a highly desirable recyclable plastic. We then move on to things like 2, and milk bottles would be the classic for that. And that's an HDPE plastic, high density polyethylene, and number 2 on the bottom. It needs to be clean. There's nothing like doing a waste audit and you know as soon as you open the lid on a bin whether it's going to be good or bad recycling. Some are just, the smell is unbelievable, and good recycling smells, according to a child I worked with, like laundry powder and butterflies. So I'm not sure what butterflies smell like, but apparently like clean recycling. You'll note no lids. So lids of any description really are a pain at the recycling plant. They're often a different grade of plastic. They're a colour usually, and which devalues the cost on some occasions, and they do tend to jam up machinery. So lids are a problem. So lids are landfill, and I'm sorry, it's a clear lid, but hopefully you can still see it. Flat lids are a problem because the scanner reads them as paper and cardboard. Oh. So if you think about the flat lid of a metal can, that also reads as paper and cardboard, which can be a problem.
What if it's inside the metal can?
Yeah, if you can tuck it in, so we tend not to take ours off totally. We tend to leave them slightly attached, push them inside the can and squash the can just a little bit. They don't particularly like your plastics squashed. There was a move for people to squash them to get more in the bin. It needs to be loose. So we also don't want it bagged up because bagged recycling ends up going straight down the chute to landfill. They don't have time to open bags, and often the bags aren't recycling anyway. There's something disgusting like nappies.
Can the metal containers be bent? Because as a habit from places in which things like this go to landfill, I'm used to bend them and close them together. Otherwise, there are incidents in which cats, yes, stray cats, tends to stick their heads inside.
Yeah, and I've rescued a cat in that situation. So yeah, squash them in a little bit, but they don't want to be totally flat. They will get compacted and flattened when they get put into those big bales. So there's machinery that does that at EcoCentral at the plant. Don't jump in your recycle bin to get more in it. We've had some interesting incidents of injury. It needs to be loose so that when the truck picks up the recycling, it tips over the truck and it then falls in loosely. If you've jumped in it and compacted it in, there's every chance that half your bin will actually stay behind. The same with your red bin. Also, your lid needs to be flat on your recycle bin, because if it's halfway up, when it gets over the truck, there's every possibility that half that load might end up on the footpath. So they do like a flat lid, thank you. And I know the wind can be a challenge, and I know that Rikaya has had some clips fitted to the top of their curbside recycle bins to see if they can help with that, because it's a bit of a wind tunnel down the side of the river, and they've been put on trial. Yes, Lauren, definitely. So yeah, flat plastic lids and screw-on lids are definitely landfill for the red bin, unless you can find another use for them. There are some kindies that will take them for workshop tables, etc. Hopefully there's some stuff coming around lid recycling, but as yet there's nothing confirmed. There's a few sort of people working on it, and there's a few rumours, but until I have something confirmed, I'm just waiting. So yeah, we tend to share ours with schools or use them as teaching resources for counters, and there's some pretty amazing murals made around the place out of milk bottle tops lids. So yeah, they need a redesign. A lot of this actually needs redesigning, so it's cool designing waste out, because it would be good to have less recycling, and for that to actually happen, we need the packaging companies to step up and redesign their packaging, because that lovely little container I had before, which was the sour cream container, is a grade 6, and that doesn't have a great market at the moment. So in Ashburton, plastic wise, you can still put in 1 to 7, but up in Christchurch, Selwyn and Waimakariri, you're only able to put in 1, 2 and 5. I suspect that's going to be coming for Ashburton, but the decision hasn't been made yet. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what's coming through. Paper and cardboard. I think the thing is, it's just too hard to learn all the different brands of what you can put in. So start thinking to yourself, what is it made of? So paper and cardboard, definitely. We don't want household paint on this, and we don't want glitter. Glitter is litter, it's pretty hideous. And we want them loose. And you can flatten those ones because they will read as paper and cardboard. Your loo roll, I've got a trick for these as plant pots, which I might do as a separate one about a rethinking, reusing type session if people are keen. Cans we spoke about a little bit. So again, no lids, clean. I have a trick with our cat food tins that is worth sharing, especially if you have goldfish pond. I really don't like cleaning out the cat food tin, but I know it has to be cleaned to go in the recycling. So we pop the cat food tin into our goldfish pond when it's empty. The fish clean it out very nicely for us, and then we just take the tin out, give it a shake, put it in the recycling. So the fish get fed. Yep, the cat catches the dumb goldfish, cycle of life. And yeah, it's just nice and easy. And then we're also not putting that leftover cat food, you know, just the bits that are attached to the tin down the drain for the wastewater treatment plant.
I found that hot water is also just from the local house warm water, 60 degrees is quite helpful in loosening up the food scraps.
Yeah, so soaking,
yeah.
Leaving it on the bench overnight. But yeah, I quite like that trick because we haven't bought cat food, fish food rather, in yonks. And we also use it for the crusty cat food plates, you know, the one where it dries like cement. The fish do a fabulous job cleaning that one off. So aluminium cans, yeah, great in your recycling. Thank you very much. There are some collections around their little tear tabs, and I'm investigating setting some of that collection points up down in Ashburton, along with the aluminium wine bottle lids. So just watch out for that one. We're working on it's got a working title of funny fringe things at the moment, which we will change, but just looking at copying some ideas that we've seen at other transfer stations around the place that help reuse things and also reducing what's going to landfill. So we're looking possibly at a plastic plant pot project, and involving some of the schools in that as well. So that's currently what I'm working on, because I'm not obviously in classes. Glass. You guys in Ashburton are clever. I love what you do. And the really interesting thing about glass is that there's some nationwide conversations going on at the moment about it not going in curbside collection like in Christchurch, and keeping it separate like Ashburton does. So currently in Ashburton, you put it out in your lovely green crate, or you drop it off at the transfer station on Range Street. If you put it out in the crate, Rewa with Daisy, the little truck, comes around and sorts it curbside, which obviously hasn't been able to happen under lockdown because it's been a little bit in the tricky basket. And it goes back to the transfer station where there literally are mountains of green glass, clear glass, brown glass. Eddie's seen them. They're pretty impressive. From there, it gets shipped up to OI Glass Recycling, and they also have a fabulous clip, and it's turned back into glass. At the moment, it's being collected and not colour separated, and it is going to Auckland as a mix of all those three colours, and it's going through the recycling plant up there run by Vizzy in Auckland, because Vizzy has a colour separating machine. I haven't seen it, but I definitely think it's worth on my look next time I'm in Auckland, and go and see what they're doing. The glass refund scheme, there's currently in front of the government, who are a wee bit busy at the moment, a container deposit scheme, and there's a working party looking on that. So the idea being that you would take your bottle back, and like we used to do in the old days, you'd get a monetary refund for it. So I can remember Coca-Cola bottles being worth 5 and 10 cents, depending what they were. It's working in Australia, and we had the guy from Australia present last year at the Wasteman's conference. So hopefully that's coming, and it won't be just glass bottles. They'll be looking at aluminium cans and other beverage containers, and plastic bottles apparently will be in there as long as they're under 3 litres. So good fundraiser, and an opportunity to keep it going round. And hopefully if it's worth something, we might not see so much roadside litter. And if people are picking it up, at least they can be making some money on it. So for your recycling, just a bit of a recap, and then we might take some questions. Glass in your crate, thank you, or you can drop it at the Resource Recovery Park. That's glass you drink from or has jam or things in it. It is not glass windows. We can't recycle those at this stage. There is something around cask windscreens coming. I love my world. It's ever changing. I think I've got it, and then they come up with new ideas, which is great, because there's certainly plenty of challenges to be solved. Paper and cardboard. Yep, if you've got lots of cardboard because you moved house, please take it down to the Resource Recovery Park. It would pay to check the council page as to what they're taking at various levels, because things are changing, and some of the places that they've been sending that bulk cardboard or whiteware to haven't been open, so they haven't been taking because there's been nowhere for it to go. And you can imagine if 50 people descend with their fridges in Ashburton, it's just going to create this massive pile that they can't store. If you are using the Resource Recovery Park, just be patient, because we've still obviously got restrictions on numbers where you can go. And the resale shop, dump shops are not looking at it being open until at least level 2, and possibly some of them won't be open until level 1.
So at the moment, do you drive into the Resource Recovery Park?
Yeah, you go up to the weighbridge. So just follow the staff directions, and you know, in the words of Jacinda, just be kind and patient, because everybody is under a bit of stress, and I'm very aware that people have been having house clear outs. So there's protocols being put in place and safety guidelines around what they will be able to accept at secondhand shops and how they will have to handle it. and some of that might even be quarantining for up to 72 hours, spraying with bleach solution. It's all sort of a bit unknown at the moment because we're all on this big learning curve of how to stay safe, and that's the really important thing. So recycling, yeah, good, great. We could definitely improve in the quality of it. I'd love to see more New Zealand-based recycling with real jobs going on, and the Waste Minimisation Fund is just about to launch, and they are looking for bright ideas, New Zealand-based, that will create jobs, because we could do with a few at the moment. So that might be worth somebody looking at and applying for. But reducing and rethinking. You know, if you've got a glass jar, can you reuse it with its lid to make jam? I've certainly been busy doing that with my time off, and I've used up virtually every jar in the house. So just thinking about it, do you need to go buy an empty plastic container at Briscoe's full of air when you might be able to reuse an ice cream container? Quite like that idea because you get to eat the ice cream first. We are changing because we've got into this habit of taking our own bags to the supermarket. Getting back into taking our own cup so that we're not using a disposable cup, because there's no recycling of those in New Zealand, and composting is extremely limited.
Actually, Lauren had a question about the flat plastic lids. So should we just put them into the red bin at the moment?
Yeah. So lids are rubbish.
And the same goes for lids for plastic Coca-Cola bottles.
Yep.
And also the small circular tab that the lid steers away from.
Yep. So those small things are a problem. Paper, we didn't talk about, nothing smaller than a Post-it note. And just watch some of the paper that you think might be paper. So I know that parking tickets so you know, you pay at the machine in Christchurch, they are plastic coated, because they're one of the things that we find in litter pickups because they don't break down. So I know Christchurch City Council is looking at redoing those, and some of it should just be electronic anyway. Till receipts can often be a problem because of what the printing is. They won't recycle well. We should.
What about beer lids?
About which ones?
Beer lids. They are thin but have plastic on the inside.
I know, it is frustrating. I hear you. Yeah, there are some groups that will take them back. So I'm not sure under the current climate where we're at with that, but I know that some scrap metal dealers have taken them back. I had a phone call from somebody in the Ashburton district who had 6 40-gallon drums of beer bottle lids. Apparently they'd been collecting them for an art project.
So possibly asking a local group whether someone is collecting those.
Yeah,
same as with the bread ones.
Yeah, so that's the project we're working on at the moment, is just connecting all those bright ideas around the district, and perhaps instigating a few more, and encouraging and supporting them. Because yeah, it's those odd things that they're just a pain. And
what about jar lids?
Jar lids. Okay, so if it's a metal jar lid and I'm not going to use it, so say it's gone rusty, or I bottle and preserve fruit and you have that flat metal disc underneath that once you've popped can't be reused. We literally have a bucket outside our back door with holes in the bottom to let the water out. It's got a lid, and that's our scrap metal bucket. And
so it doesn't go into the yellow bin?
No, because it's flat. Remember, it will read as paper and cardboard.
Anything flat other than paper or cardboard shouldn't go into the yellow bin?
Yeah.
Okay.
We need some modification of the computer optics, but also we need some design upstream or redesign. So we do have one brand of Captain where the lid comes right off, and we wash that and we just put that in our scrap metal bucket, and I take it with me when I go to the resource recovery park or the transfer station, and I drop it off in the scrap metal bin, so it can still be recycled. Yeah, does that help, Lauren? Give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, I think those are the questions she was
Yeah.
asking.
So,
Yeah.
other confusing things?
Well, it is a bit confusing
I
to know
know.
what not to put in the yellow bin, but you still want them recycled. The lids, for example, could be 4 jars you put in the green one.
Mm, mm. So, just keep up to date with the council info because there will be some changes coming. I will certainly be posting on the Eco Educate page. I'm really happy to answer questions. I love them by email because then if I don't know, I can flick it out to the network and we can see if we can find out for you. There isn't always an answer, but sometimes also I can pass them on to someone who might see it as an opportunity to come up with a solution, which is always very satisfying. Yeah, so good, clean, correct recycling, but also think about, did you need it in the first place? Could you reuse it? Is there something better you could purchase that isn't adding to the waste stream and
Yeah.
ending up in the landfill? Yeah. And there is some stuff that just has to go to landfill because at the moment we don't have a solution. Snotty tissues, gloves and face masks, I'm really happy for those to go to landfill, and they're asking for you to pop them inside an old bread bag so that they're bagged before they go in your rubbish bin so that they're not loose. They are one of the biggest things we're finding in litter pickups at the moment. So, you know, people keeping themselves safe and then just dropping it in the environment. Please stay safe. I very much advocate long-handled litter pickers or old barbecue tongs when picking up litter, and good hand washing, and then follow up with some sanitizer because, you know,
What about milk and juice cartons, Tetra Pak?
Tetra Paks, oh, what a nightmare.
I've been hearing there had been some attempts in Christchurch to recycle, and then it's off and on what you read.
Yeah. The problem we have is as soon as people start putting different components together, so I haven't got a Tetra Pak beside me, sorry, but if you visualize a Tetra Pak juice carton, you've got cardboard on the outside and you've got a foil metal in the inside, and then you've got a wee plastic bit on the top. So you've got three different things there. As soon as you start combining three things together, or even two, it makes it really hard to recycle. So if it was just paper, easy. If it was just metal, piece of cake. If it was just plastic, it would be easier. We as consumers vote basically every time we open our wallet. So if we stop buying this stuff or we send emails back to companies politely, then hopefully we drive some change. Because
So at the moment they go to the landfill.
they go to the landfill.
I can tell you as someone who uses plant-based milks, that's the only way to get them.
I know.
There aren't any plastic bottles.
Yeah. And you know, that almond milk and soy milk and oat milk, it all comes in Tetra Paks, and it's a nightmare.
And small ones.
Yeah, I am following up on at 7 o'clock tonight through I'll give them a plug if you haven't already cottoned on, Lauren. They, the Mid Canterbury Time Bank people have got Hannah and Liam from the Rubbish Trip talking. The Rubbish Trip website is well worth a visit for recipes. So, you know, making your own plant-based milks. You certainly save some money and you won't have as much trash to be throwing out at the other end. Plus, you know what's in it, which I'm a big fan of. So, yeah, they'll be on at 7. So just look on Facebook and follow the link. I intend to be there too because I always learn something from Hannah and Liam.
So what else? What is currently being recycled in New Zealand? Because we all want not to ship our waste overseas.
Yeah. The irony is that it's in some cases been cheaper to ship it over to Asia than it has been across Cook Strait. That has to change. So at the moment, glass, OI, glass recycling in Auckland. And in Christchurch, the glass out of the curbside bins isn't being turned back into glass. It's being ground up and used for sandblasting and roading. but I can see not too far down the future where glass is going to be separated out from curbside bins, and we'll copy what Ashburton does. And you're not the only place. Wanaka does it, Hokitika on the west coast. There's a few places around New Zealand, noticeably the smaller places, but you're doing it well and you're doing it smart, and it's still economically viable to send it, so that's cool. Plastic grade 1, so that's going to Wellington to Flight Plastics. We have a plastic processing plant in Christchurch called ComSpec, and they take grade 2 plastic, so that's your milk bottles. I know that Wanaka Wastebusters sends up a lot of milk bottles to ComSpec. Paper and cardboard at the moment from the South Island's going offshore. I'm really hoping there's going to be some announcements around that will change. Metal's actually the easiest to recycle, and it's the one that's worth the most money. And we have scrap metal merchants dotted across New Zealand. Recycling people are always looking for the best deal when they sell the recycling, because recycling's worth money. The reason the myth comes about that there's no point, recycling all goes to landfill anyway, is when we get heavy contamination in the truck. So if we get one person on a run who puts wood ash from their fire or grass clippings from their lawnmower in the recycle bin, you can't get that out. It goes through everything. You imagine trying to pick that out of 6 tons of recycling. It just takes one plonker, basically, to stuff up the entire truckload. Food can be a problem. Hazardous waste. Batteries, no batteries in recycling, please. They tend to set the tracks on fire, which gets everybody's attention. But you can drop batteries and things down at the resource recovery park. There's a whole pile of other things that you can drop off down there for free. Electronics. Gosh,
for batteries, you can also, what I've done at my workplace, at the community house, started a container, and people who work there just bring their battery there.
Yeah.
And once a month or two, you can just take the entire container.
Yeah, so we just have in the laundry a small container for dead batteries to go into. I keep it small because I don't want to stockpile lots of batteries. I'm sure the insurance company wouldn't like me if I did that. And when I go down to a transfer station and it's full, I just take it with me, and there's a battery collection point. There was a scheme running with New World, and it's certainly in Lincoln, and it was trial phase before COVID hit, so it'd be interesting to see how it goes. And they were having drop-off bins for batteries. Car batteries are actually worth money. And again, we don't want them in curbside recycling, but they can be dropped off for free.
Soft plastics. We
Plastics.
used to collect those.
What a nightmare. Soft plastic, right. So currently there is some recycling going on in the North Island with a company called Future Post, who are making farm posts. There are no soft plastic collection points for recycling in the South Island at this point.
So all bags, all soft plastics go into the waste at the moment.
So when we talk
Don't put any of them in the yellow bin, which is a mistake I've heard people do.
Yeah. So basically the definition for soft plastic is if you can take it and scrunch it. So imagine a bread bag, cling film, glad bag, those sorts of things. If you can scrunch it, then it is landfill. That also applies to things like the wrap around crackers and biscuits. Mm-hmm. That's soft plastic, that's landfill. But it's also that little plastic tray that's inside the insert that the crackers sit in, because you can scrunch it.
It's not number 1.
Sorry?
I thought it was number 1 plastic.
Yeah, no, but it's scrunchable. You see, so it's that scrunchable thing that gets confusing. I think if you're stuck, just look, send me an email. Give me a ring, I don't mind. Send me a photo. I do get some pretty strange photos across my desk, and I'm happy to help. And if things change or new schemes come in place, then yeah, I share that on my Facebook page, and definitely when we're in schools. Sometimes I'll flick it out through schools and I'll put it in their newsletters. I try and do the same with preschools as well, so that people do know. And yeah, hopefully we might find some markets for these things, or we might get some companies who might decide to redesign their packaging. Plenty of opportunity.